All right, welcome back to our visual scripting crash course. We're working in Unreal Engine, and this is all about giving you some of the foundational pieces that you might be missing if you've never taken a formal scripting course or you don't have a software engineering background. Today's video is an addendum to our variables class, and we are going to be specifically talking about container types. This is a very important addendum. Usually I actually include this in the initial introduction to variables, but we're doing it as addendum in this case. So let's hop into Unreal and have a quick chat about what I'm talking about so you know what we're covering. So here we are in Unreal. And what I've done is this is our house. This is just our house blueprint. At the end, I've only made two changes. I've disconnected the scale because that would be annoying while we're just trying to print strings and things like that. And I just made some room for some stuff. Now, what do I mean by container types? Up until this point, when we've been talking about variables, we have our bucket analogy. It's a bucket, it holds a value. We can take the value out, we can put a value in it, we label it, all those things. Now, we've always so far only talked about one value. And this is where we start talking about our container types. Let me show you what I mean by one value. You'll notice that when we look at our second variable here, that there's a single pill-shaped image next to it. That means it is a single value bucket. And if we click on second variable, I'll show you exactly where I'm talking about. Over here on the right, just beneath our variable name, is the variable type. The thing that we never talked about is off to the right of variable type. That is the container type. And it determines, when you look inside the bucket, is there one value? Is there 5 values? What's in their bucket? And that's what we're talking about today. So let's take a look at this. The single variable type you're already familiar with. It's just called single. And it's a bucket, it holds a single value, an integer, a string, everything we've been talking about so far. The second type here is called an array. This is a very important container type in Unreal Engine because an array, you can think of it as a list or a series of variables inside your bucket, values inside your bucket. So normally, if you look in your bucket, there's one thing, but in an array bucket, when you look inside, there's multiple items in there. And that is one of the most important things that I want to cover today. So let's do this. As usual, it's best exemplified by example. So let's create a new variable, and we're going to call this variable fruits. And I'm going to set the type to be a string. And normally, if we compile this, we could set the default value to apple, for example. And if we start and we print string, we can print out fruits. Okay? However, you'll notice this is just what we've done the whole time. What we want to do is we want to change fruits. So I'm actually going to disconnect this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on fruits, and rather than, I'm over on the right, I'm going to select the container type, and rather than single, I'm going to make this an array. Now, when I do that, it makes it a grid. It's a little bit misleading, but for now, just think about it as a list. And I'm going to compile this. And the reason I'm going to compile this is because we are going to specify some default values. You'll notice down here, our default values have changed a little bit. This allows us to add items to our array. You can think of it as adding items to your list. Maybe this is a grocery list of fruits that we want to buy. So what do we want to buy? Well, let's add one by clicking the plus sign. Let's get an apple. Okay. Now, because it's a list or an array, I can store more than one item. So when I do that, let's put a banana in our fruits basket. And do we have any mango lovers out there? I love mango. Let's go mango too. So this fruits variable, remember, this is a bucket. This bucket is special. It's an array bucket. It's an array bucket. And when you look inside this one, there isn't a single value. It actually has 3 values inside of it now. One is apple, one is banana, and one is mango. Now, The cool thing about visual scripting, and especially in Unreal in this case, is it actually gives us a little bit of information that we can use to figure out how to get information into and out of our array bucket at this point. That information I'm talking about, other than the value, apple, banana, mango, is this field over here on the left. You'll notice it says index 0, 1, and 2. Now, what is important about index is that we think about this as the address of what it is we actually want to get. Because when we look in our bucket, if we have 3 items, how do we know which of the 3 items we're going to take out of the bucket or put into the bucket? The index is a way of thinking of the address that we want to get specifically. So when I want to print out apple, I can't just print the name of the fruits bucket like I used to before. You'll notice if I drag fruits out here, I can't do it. But if I get fruits, what I can do is I can get the item from it. So fruits has, you'll notice it has like kind of this grid square. If I drag off of that, I'm going to get a reference. I'm going to get a reference. And the thing to understand is when I get this is getting a reference to the fruits array, and it's asking me which address, which index I want to get out. Well, if we look at our fruits array, the item at index 0 is, hopefully you're saying apple. The item at index 1 is banana, and index 2 is mango. So if we do a begin play and all we do is print a string, we're going to get the fruits bucket, but we are going to give it a little more information when we get values out of an array. We're going to give it the index we want to. And in this case, I'm giving it index 0. So now we're going to print apple. So let's just go ahead and play, and we should see apple print in the top left. Perfect. This is great. Now if we go back, we can see in our house array, if we wanted to print banana, what is the address? What is the index for banana? Hopefully you're saying 1. And in this case, if I type 1, now when we run our game, you'll notice that it prints banana in the top left. Perfect. Okay, oh, we can stop our simulation here. Let's go back. And finally, I think you get the idea at this point. If we wanted to print out mango, we would need to get the item at address or index 2, and it would print mango. Now, why is this so powerful? If you think about it, when we're working in game development, virtual production, whatever it is very frequent that we are working with a lot of similar items. So for example, give me a list of all the enemies in the scene. Well, if there's 20 enemies in the scene, I don't want to create 20 variables. It would be great if I could create one variable, a list or an array, okay, that stored all of them, and then I could get, okay, well, enemy 0, enemy 1, enemy 2, etc., and go through and do things. So give me all the obstacles in a scene, all the cameras. Basically, anytime you would want to store multiple of a group of things, we're going to be using array, and we do this a lot. You know, weapons you're carrying, inventory items, these are all arrays. This is going to be one of the things that we use most from a variable standpoint, and it's going to be one of the most powerful types of variables we use. So it's very important that we understand it. Now, so we have our fruits, we get our fruits, we print, and right now we're printing the fruit at address 1. Well, let's just print 2. This is going to be mango. Okay, now how do we set values in an array? Well, it's the exact same thing we were doing before, and what we do is, what we need to do though is we need to actually here specify the index just like we do when we get it. So from fruits, I am going to set the array element. Now, what happens is when we do this, we have to fill out a little more information than we used to. In this case, what item, what address, index do I want to update? In this case, I want to replace mango. And we're going to replace mango with kiwi. Let's try kiwi, okay? And what we're going to do is which spot was mango in? Which address, which index? It's at index 2. So we need to make sure we specify 2. Now, what's going to happen is we're going to begin play. We're going to print the item in our array that is at index 2, address 2. Then we are going to set the item in our array at index 2 to be kiwi. Now let's print it again. So from here we'll drag off and we'll get fruits. And then let's go ahead and get a reference. And we're going to choose the second index. And we're going to print again. So now what should happen is we should print, if we look at our array, what item is in index 2? Mango. Then we are going to set our array, the item in index 2 to kiwi. And then finally we're going to print the item from index 2 again. Now, let's just run this and make sure that all works as we would expect. And then let's have a chat about indices. All right, so you'll notice it printed mango and then it printed kiwi. Perfect. It's working exactly the way we would expect it to. Now, I want to draw your attention to two aspects of working with these arrays. First off, notice that the address or the index starts at 0. Most visual scripting, a lot of programming languages, the addressing for arrays or the index starts at 0. So don't be confused by the idea that I'm getting the second item in the array. This is not the second item in the array. I am getting the item at the second index. The second item in the array, you'd think to yourself, is banana. But that's not how you think about this. You are getting the index. In fact, if you actually mouse over it, it'll tell you the first dimension. In this case, they mean index. So the index 2 refers to mango. That's an important distinction that we're making. Now, the second thing that I want to be clear on, when you go to drag out fruits, if you try to set fruits, this is going to do it's going to be like a global set. It's going to replace the entire array. And in order to use this, I'll show you how to use it very quickly. If you drag off of this and you type make, you can make an array here. And what we could do is we could type in a whole different set of fruits. We could do blueberry, strawberry, and orange, for example. Now, if we do this, this is going to reset everything in the array all at once. So there's a difference between setting the array and setting a specific item, an element, sometimes it's called, in the array. And I don't want you to get confused, because every other variable, when we drag out, if we want to set the house scale, we just drag it out, we set the house scale, and we're done. Well, if we drag out array, you do a set, you're going to have to set everything in it. In order to set a specific element, when you drag out from fruits, what you got to do is you've got to get just the array fruits. So you get, which is a little bit different. We're going to get fruits. And then from here, we're going to choose set element. So this is the second piece. Just to understand that distinction, when you're working with arrays, this is a little bit different. Now, if we do this, and then we once again print, if we print the item at index 1 now, okay, let's just trace through this and see what's going to happen. We're going to begin play. We're going to take fruits. We're going to get the item that's in index 2. What is it, index 2? Remember, this is not the second item. Index 2 holds mango. We're going to print it. Then we're going to set the item that's in index 2 to kiwi. Then we're going to print the item that's index 2. Then we are going to set the entire array to blueberry, strawberry, orange. When we do that and we get the item that is at index 1, what is at index 1 now? Hopefully, as you're looking at this, you say strawberry. So we should print strawberry here at the end. Now let's go ahead and play this out and let's make sure. We have mango, kiwi, strawberry. Perfect. That was very fast, but it was exactly what we expected it to be. So arrays are super powerful. It is a special kind of variable bucket that holds a whole bunch of values, and then the way we know which value we want to get or set is by using an index, which is kind of like the address of where it lives inside the bucket. We use this for basically anything that we might get a list of: cameras, characters, weapons, items, inventories. We use this all the time. You can use this for hit detection, or you can say, give me all the characters in a radius if you want to just blow up certain characters or whatever it is. So an array is a very important container type that you are going to be using a lot as you go forward. Now, there's a lot more to arrays that we are going to cover when we start talking about control flow. But for now, it's important to understand that the entire aspect of an array is a list of values, and they have an index, an address for you to be able to access them. Cool. Now, let's move on to the second part of our addendum, and we're going to talk about one more of our container types, and I'm going to create a new variable, and I'm going to call this weapons, for example. And we will, rather than setting the variable type to an array, we're going to keep it a string, but we're going to change it to a map. Now, a map is a little bit different than an array, but it works very similarly. So if we click on our map, and a map has two parts. If you think about an array as having an index, which is an address, and a value, a map has an address that you decide. It could be an index, it could be a name, it could be whatever it is. So the address could be whatever it is, and then the value is a different type of variable. Let's see if we can explain this. First, let's compile this. So right now, just by default, my weapons map has a string for the address, if you will, and an integer for the value. So if I was going to add an element to this, I could say that this is a pistol, for example. And let's just say that the value that I have is either the number of pistols I'm holding, or maybe it's the amount of ammo I have left in the pistol. So in this case, let's just say I have 8 rounds left. And then I wanted to add a rifle. And let's say I have 5 rounds there. Now, just like an array, in order to access these values, I'm going to use the address, which in this case is pistol or rifle. That's how we know what it is, to get the amount of ammo I have, which in this case is an integer, 8 or 5, etc. So let's just see what that looks like, because there are some slight differences. If we drag off of our weapons and we choose get weapons, and we drag off of here, you'll notice that there is no, the get is a little bit different. If you type get here, there's nothing there. And that's because a map doesn't have an index. And so what you need to do is you need to find. All right, now we need to find, in this case, what it is we want to print in our map. So in this case, let's find, actually let's add one more, just a shotgun. Let's say we have 2 shotgun rounds. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to find, let's say, rifle. And then what's going to happen is Unreal is going to go into that bucket. It's going to look for anything that has an address of rifle. That's how it's going to find it. And then it's going to get the value that is in the rifle slot. In this case, 5. So if we do a print string on this, I can't spell, print string, and we print out the value that is in the rifle slot, we should print 5. So let's just go ahead and play. And you'll notice in the top left, it's very small and blue, but it says 5. So it works a lot like an array in the sense that it stores a list, but the difference is you choose how you're going to address the value. In this case, I chose to use a string to map to the amount of ammo that I have. Now, because you can change the left side to be anything you want, there's really no limit to this. So we'll change this for fun. Let's see here. If we wanted to, we could do a string and a vector, or a string and we could do 2 strings. We could do a string and a string. This could break connections. Now, the reason this is telling me this is because I've connected to an int already, and that's okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and change the variable type, and I'm going to get an error. And that's fine. I'm just going to delete this out, and I'm just going to drag off of weapons. And again, we have to find. Now, because I've changed this to string and string, what I need to do is I need to change this. So pistol, and then let's use pistol, and then the type of pistol. For example, let's say it's Glock. Actually, let's trash our array. It doesn't, oh, I forgot to compile. Okay, so you gotta compile. Now let's add our elements back in. So we're going to have a pistol, and it's going to be a Glock. And then we're going to add another element, and this time we're going to do a rifle, and let's say it's a sniper rifle. And then finally we can do a shotgun, and maybe this is a KSB. Okay, so now we've redefined our weapons, and just like we did before, in order to get the value, if I want to know what kind of rifle it is, the name of it, or maybe it's just whatever the player named the rifle, what I need to do is this time I'm going to find the rifle, and this time when I print, it is going to print out the name, which in this case is sniper. So if we run this and we press play, you'll notice that it prints sniper in the top. In the top left. Okay, so if we escape out of that, now, just like with an array, setting values in a map is a little bit different. So if we choose set weapons, you'll notice that it's you can do the same thing as you do with an array. You can choose make a map, and in here you're going to type your key and your value, for example. Or what we could do is we could get our map, and this one is a little bit different. I'm going to have to do some looking. If I ref bar, is that what I want? Nope, that's not what I want. It is set weapons, map. Okay, so we can, these are all the things that we can do with maps. We can add, we can clear, we can find keys, length, remove, and values. Interesting. So it's hard to set a specific, let's see what values gives us. Nope, that's not what we want. This one may be a little bit more difficult just to set one at a time. So in this case, let's just add a new thing. So let's just add a key. And this time we're going to add let's see, we have a pistol, a rifle, a shotgun. Let's do a knife. And let's just say it is the Deathblade, is the full name of the knife. Okay, so now if I wanted to print that, same as I've done before, I can just drag out, but I need to make sure that I choose the right name or the right address, which in this case is knife. And what's going to happen is when we compile and save this, and we press play, you'll notice that it prints sniper and then deathblade. So going back, the important thing to remember here is that in addition to variables, being able to name our variable buckets, that they have values in them and so on, and choosing the types, there are also a container types that we can set. Those are single, which we were using all throughout the first video. And then there are arrays, sets, and maps, at least in Unreal, that you can use. And the general way that you set these container types, for example, with arrays, is you're going to add to a list of things. And then it's just a matter of figuring out how you get at each of the items in that list. For an array, it's simple. You just get it based on the index, which is kind of like the address. And for a map, you get it by finding the lookup table. You can also think of this as a lookup table. Pistol is Glock, rifle is sniper. And so you're looking up the name based on the initial value to it. So that wraps up our container types addendum for variables. I thought it was very important that we cover the idea of an array. Maps, you're probably not going to use as much. So if you didn't quite grok it right away or didn't sink in right away, don't worry too much about maps. Focus on arrays. Go back, rewatch that section, because we are absolutely going to be using a lot of arrays in Unreal Engine, and we will be working with different control flow types that help us work with arrays in some upcoming classes. As always, we welcome your feedback. Please feel free to throw your comments down in the comments down below. If you're a newbie, let us know how this went. If you are a guru, also let us know what you thought about this. Are there things that you would potentially cover a little bit differently, etc.? My name's Kevin. As always, thanks for joining. If you like this kind of content, help us out, spread the word, and we will keep making similar videos. Have a good one. See you on the next one.